Jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Assalamualaikum, salam hormat anda bersama saya Harits Asyraf Hasnan. Saya bawakan anda eksklusif dari Jeonju, Korea Selatan bersempena dengan Minggu Pemimpin-Pemimpin Ekonomi Asia Pasifik ataupun APEC AELW 2025 di mana Perdana Menteri telah pun tiba semalam dan hari ini beliau akan menyampaikan intervensi beliau. Ada dua session tapi hari ini ada satu session yang akan kita dengarkan apa yang akan disampaikan oleh Perdana Menteri. Tapi apa yang paling penting adalah bagaimana platform global ini, kerana satu adalah Malaysia baru sahaja selesai mempengerusikan ASEAN 2025 dan ini adalah platform APEC. Bagaimana kesaling hubungan itu cukup penting dalam membawa image Malaysia, bukan sahaja dari segi orang kata cara diplomasi ataupun pendekatan yang kita nak lakukan, tetapi akhirnya bagaimana kesaling hubungan itu dapat diwujudkan ASEAN, APEC dan global secara keseluruhannya. Jadi saya berbesar hati hari ini saya bersama dengan individu yang tidak asing lagi bersiaran bersama dengan Astro AWANI. Saya persilakan saudara Amir Farid Rahim, pengarah strategi KRA Group. Amir, annyeonghaseyo.
Annyeonghaseyo.
Okey.
Harits, kita bersama.
Bersama di Jeonju ini. Dalam opening tadi saya menyebut berkenaan dengan nak hubung jalin antara ASEAN 2025 yang dipengerusikan oleh Malaysia dan kali ini di APEC. Kita nampak perlu wujudnya kesaling hubungannya itu. Bagaimana Amir melihat posisi Malaysia dalam membawa suara di peringkat global ini?
Terima kasih Harits. Kita sebetulnya kali ini APEC yang diadakan kali ini betul-betul back to back dengan ASEAN dan sememangnya kita Malaysia, kepimpinan Malaysia hadir di APEC kali ini dengan satu, saya rasa tenaga yang cukup berbeza di atas kejayaan seperti mana yang telah banyak diperkatakan oleh bukan saja ahli-ahli negara anggota ASEAN tetapi juga rakan-rakan dialog kita yang telah mengatakan bahawa kepengurusian ASEAN Malaysia pada tahun 2025 ini yang klimaks yang kita lihat pada persidangan pemimpin tertinggi ASEAN ke-47 beberapa hari yang lepas menunjukkan bahawa kedudukan Malaysia datang ke APEC kali ini sebagai sebuah kuasa yang berjaya menyatukan blok-blok utama dunia, negara-negara yang berseteru, mewujudkan satu platform di Malaysia. Mereka telah hadir ketika ASEAN untuk berbincang dan menjayakan bukan saja agenda menyokong agenda ASEAN tetapi menyokong agenda bilateral masing-masing. Jadi kedudukan kita berubah. Kita dilihat sebagai satu broker, middle power, kuasa pertengahan yang berjaya di peringkat antarabangsa. Jadi saya rasa kehadiran Perdana Menteri kali ini ke APEC adalah cukup berbeza dengan dua APEC ataupun APEC sebelum ini di Peru. Kita lebih kedudukan Malaysia lebih yakin, Malaysia itu lebih yakin, tetapi juga kita juga diperakui, dilihat oleh rakan-rakan dialog kita baik di rantau Asia Tenggara maupun di peringkat Asia Pasifik ini sebagai sebuah kuasa yang perlu dihormati dan disegani.
Amin. Sudah tentu kalau kita bercakap berkenaan dengan selesai sahaja kepengerusian ASEAN oleh Malaysia, kita nampak bahawa bukan sahaja kita mempunyai adik baru Timur Leste, tetapi juga adalah bagaimana kuasa-kuasa besar yang dibawa ke Kuala Lumpur itu. Kita lihat bagaimana kehadiran Presiden Donald Trump, kita lihat bagaimana Perdana Menteri China dan juga beberapa pemimpin-pemimpin kalau kita lihat BRICS sebagai contoh. Kerana ramai yang walaupun PM Modi India terpaksa secara virtual, tetapi itu penyatuan di global di Malaysia itu naratifnya bagaimana untuk dikukuhkan dan juga dibawa di peringkat global ini. Kerana kalau kita lihat APEC lebih rencamnya lebih banyak, 21 anggota ekonomi. Tetapi bagaimana penyatuan dan juga mesej yang dibawa oleh Malaysia, negara-negara kuasa besar yang dapat dihimpunkan dan akhirnya sekali lagi berhimpun di Jeonju, Korea ini, Amir.
Dan kita betul sekali, APEC ini bilangan anggotanya itu besar. Kalau kita lihat dari segi rakan-rakan dagangan, ya, hampir 80 anggota-anggota APEC ini secara keseluruhannya meliputi hampir 80% pasar dagangan Malaysia. Ya. Jadi ini adalah satu platform yang begitu penting. Jadi saya rasa selepas selesai saja ASEAN, apa yang perlu difokuskan oleh Malaysia di APEC ini adalah pertama seperti yang saya kata pada awal tadi, sebagai sebuah kuasa bersaiz sederhana, middle power yang dihormati dan disegani, mengangkat suara negara-negara yang membangun. Kerana kalau kita lihat di dalam APEC ini, Harits, dia agak lebih demokratik. Negara kecil yang menjadi negara anggota, walaupun kecil, suaranya itu sama dengan negara kuasa besar. Jadi saya rasa dari segi itu, kita kepimpinan saya rasakan kepimpinan Malaysia harus memastikan apa yang dibincangkan di ASEAN tempoh hari dapat juga diteruskan di sini. Kalau di ASEAN, tema yang kita angkat adalah keterangkuman dan kelestarian, inclusivity dan sustainability. Jadi saya rasa perkara yang sama, message yang sama boleh dibawa ke ASEAN ini. Ke APEC kali ini. Kerana apa yang kita perjuangkan ketika tahun kepengurusian ASEAN itu bukan hanya untuk sekadar untuk 1 tahun, tetapi ini adalah sebagai membina foundation, membina asas yang kukuh untuk meningkatkan, melonjakkan ekonomi kita di masa hadapan. Jadi semua perlu bergerak selari dan seiring, ya. ASEAN itu hanya satu platform. Kita harus kita sering bincangkan ini beberapa tahun kebelakangan ini, diversifikasi, mempelbagaikan platform. Jadi APEC adalah salah satu platform yang kita sudah melabur dengan lamanya dalam membina hubungan dengan APEC ini. Jadi saya rasa kali ini apabila kita hadir ke APEC, kita harus terus membawa momentum dari kejayaan mempengerusikan ASEAN, tetapi pada masa yang sama terus memperjuangkan apa yang kita perjuangkan sebelum ini dari segi keterangkuman dan juga kelestarian. Dari segi perkara-perkara pokok yang saya rasa di APEC ini boleh terus diperjuangkan adalah pertama pendigitalan. Kerana kita masih lihat di dalam perbincangan ASEAN, contohnya perjanjian Digital Economic Framework Agreement DEFA masih belum dilunaskan sepenuhnya, walaupun kita sudah mendapat substantial conclusion ketika tahun kita mempengerusikan ASEAN. Tapi perkara yang sama boleh juga dibincang dan dijadikan sebagai satu perkara yang Malaysia is seen to be the champion of. Jadi pendigitalan itu, kerana kita harus pastikan bukan sahaja perkara pendigitalan ini menjadi agenda ASEAN, tetapi juga harus menjadi agenda APEC. Kerana kita mahukan at the end of the day, yang mendapat manfaat daripada hubungan Malaysia di dalam platform-platform antarabangsa ini adalah perniagaan kita. Kerana perniagaan Malaysia, syarikat-syarikat di Malaysia lah menyediakan pekerjaan kepada rakyat. Jadi ini yang harus dipastikan agenda komuniti perniagaan ini diangkat di platform-platform seperti ini. APEC adalah satu platform yang penting untuk komuniti perniagaan.
Saya sangat bersetuju apabila kita lihat seringkali orang mungkin bertanya, Perdana Menteri Keluar Negara mesyuarat APEC lah, kadang-kadang tahun-tahun sebelum ni mungkin beringkat ASEAN dan sebagainya, tapi apa akhirnya, apa impak kepada rakyat? Dan sebagai contoh, suka untuk saya kongsi antaranya, kalau kita lihat sebelum ini kerjasama, kalau kita cakap dari segi ekonomi, bagaimana sekarang ni rakyat Malaysia kalau pergi ke berapa negara ASEAN, 4 atau 5 negara ASEAN, Kalau tak bawa cash pun boleh, dia boleh QR Pay Singapura, Thailand, Indonesia dan sebagainya. Jadi itu antara salah satu inisiatif. Banyak lagi beberapa inisiatif lain, terutama impak kepada komuniti perniagaan dan sebagainya. Bagaimana Amir melihat bahawa terutamanya di peringkat APEC ini, impaknya harus dirasai oleh rakyat dan juga komuniti perniagaan. Kalau bercakap Amir kaitkan dengan komuniti perniagaan tadi, bagaimana akhirnya terutama dari segi mungkin rundingan tarif yang lebih baik, multilateralisme dan juga kebebasan perdagangan itu perlu dilihat secara langsung dan dirasai secara langsung oleh komuniti perniagaan Malaysia.
Pertama sekali, apabila kerajaan, sebuah kerajaan itu mengadakan hubungan diplomasi dan hubungan dagang dengan negara lain, sudah tentu agenda yang dibawa adalah agenda nasional. Jadi untuk Malaysia ini, kita negara berdagang di mana ratio perdagangan ke GDP kita lebih daripada 100% hampir setiap tahun ya. Jadi sebagai sebuah negara berdagang, apa yang penting untuk peniaga syarikat-syarikat kita adalah akses pasaran. Kerana akses pasaran ini perlu sentiasa didiversifikasikan. Kita tidak boleh bergantung kepada mana-mana satu pasaran saja.
Ataupun pasaran tradisional, yang lama, yang sekian lama.
Betul, kerana contohnya seperti apabila kita dihimpit isu tarif unilateral oleh Amerika Syarikat pada awal tahun ini, bila kita menganalisa dari segi data, kita melihat dengan jelas bahawa hanya 20%, 18% sebenarnya perdagangan kita dengan Amerika Syarikat. 80% lagi dengan pasaran lain di dunia. Tetapi pada masa yang sama, pasaran ekspor ke Amerika Syarikat itu adalah pasaran yang besar. Mereka mempunyai daya beli yang cukup kuat. Jadi walaupun ada saya membaca dan mendengar di podcast misalnya, ada yang berkatakan, oh kita diversifikasikan saja, pergi ke pasaran lain,
tinggalkan Amerika
Syarikat. Tapi saya rasa tidak semudah itu, kerana kita harus mencari kuasa-kuasa ekonomi yang mampu dan mahu membeli produk-produk kita. Jadi pertama memastikan akses pasaran, dan kedua ialah memastikan diversifikasi dari segi produk itu. Kita tidak boleh hanya berada di takuk yang sama, menjual benda yang 10-15 tahun dahulu kita jual, kita masih hari ini mempromosikan benda yang sama. Jadi perlu ada nilai tambah, perlu ada inovasi dalam ekonomi Malaysia. Jadi kerana itu di platform seperti ini, kerana kita lihat APEC ini bukannya satu gagasan yang terlalu formal, tapi banyak idea-idea yang dicetuskan di sini dan akhirnya dibawa kepada jalur-jalur platform ataupun platform seperti ASEAN, di mana kemudian ia mengikat keseluruhan ekonomi-ekonomi di ASEAN itu untuk melakukan harmonisasi dasar ke arah perkara-perkara yang membantu membuka pasaran, meningkatkan keupayaan ekosistem perniagaan untuk bukan sahaja untuk memastikan daya saing ekonomi itu meningkat, tetapi juga untuk merancakkan lagi aktiviti ekonomi di negara-negara anggota. Ini kalau kita bersebut ASEAN, negara-negara anggota lah. Kalau kita bercerita tentang APEC, ialah ekonomi di dalam APEC ini. Tetapi pokoknya, sebelum saya menghabiskan segmen itu, apa yang jelas ialah kehadiran negara-negara baik di ASEAN maupun di APEC ini penyertaannya cukup tinggi kali ini, Harits. Ini membuktikan walaupun apa yang Amerika Syarikat secara unilateral buat, negara-negara lain bebas melakukan apa yang mereka mahu. Mereka bebas untuk meningkatkan hubungan dengan negara-negara lain. Mereka mampu untuk kekal mempertahankan hubungan dagang multilateral dengan berbagai-bagai negara. Jadi tidak kiralah apa satu, walaupun kuasa itu kuasa besar, kuasa ekonomi besar, negara di dunia ini mempunyai pilihan lain dan mereka bebas untuk mengatur bagaimana mereka mahu respons kepada polisi daripada kuasa dasar, daripada kuasa-kuasa besar ini.
Dan kalau kita lihat Putrajaya Vision 2040 dan sebagainya, ini antara perkara kalau kita cakap berkenaan dengan APEC is non-binding. Betul, memang non-binding, tetapi akhirnya dia boleh test, adopt and adapt. Dan akhirnya bagaimana pelaksanaan dan juga inisiatif-inisiatif ini dapat diteruskan dan juga memberi manfaat. Okey, Amir, sedikit berkenaan dengan hosting country tahun ini APEC, iaitu Korea Selatan. South Korea ni kita tahu K-dramanya, K-popnya, the soft power itu. Kalau kita bercakap berkenaan dengan Korea Selatan juga, ada yang pemerhati menyatakan bahawa kali ini menyifatkan APEC ini sebagai K-APEC. Jadi bagaimana Amir melihat Korea Selatan mungkin boleh mempergunakan dalam sudut diplomasi soft power mereka itu dalam nak menyatukan pemikir-pemikir dan juga pemimpin-pemimpin global yang berhimpun di Jeonju pada kali ini?
Saya rasa Harits, the fact that banyak negara yang berprofil tinggi kali ini datang menyertai mesyuarat APEC di Korea membuktikan kejayaan bahawa Korea itu dilihat sebagai satu kuasa yang mampu menarik negara-negara kuasa besar untuk datang untuk berbincang di sini. Kehadiran Presiden Trump dan Presiden Xi Jinping sendiri untuk berbincang tentang isu dua ekonomi besar di APEC, di Korea, di Jeonju, merupakan saya rasa satu bukti bahawa the soft power approach of Korea itu memang berkesan. Jadi di kalangan negara-negara APEC saya rasa mereka harus melihat Korea bukan sahaja sebagai satu kuasa ekonomi yang tinggi dari segi inovasinya, yang mempunyai teknologi dan daya cipta yang tinggi, mempunyai pasaran yang mempunyai buying power yang besar, tetapi juga melihat Korea sebagai satu pemain kuasa terutamanya dari sudut soft power yang boleh menyatukan dan membawa satu message penyatuan dan message keamanan. Kerana apabila kita berbincang tentang Korea, sebenarnya Korea sebagai rantau ini adalah rantau yang agak berisiko untuk konflik kerana isu diplomasi dengan Korea Utara. Jadi walaupun begitu, the soft power appeal of Korea itu yang telah mengimbangi dan berjaya meyakinkan negara ekonomi-ekonomi di dalam APEC untuk hadir ke Korea tahun ini, hadir di Jeonju, bukan di Seoul ya. Kita harus ingatkan kita di sini di agak kawasan yang cantik, kawasan UNESCO Heritage Site, tapi kawasan yang agak jauh dari kawasan bandar ya. Jadi kehadiran pemimpin-pemimpin untuk berkampung, bermukim di APEC di Jeonju membuktikan bahawa Korea mampu untuk menarik minat negara-negara atau ekonomi-ekonomi APEC untuk bersama-sama membincangkan, menjayakan agenda yang ditetapkan oleh APEC dan Korea.
Amir, dalam lebih kurang dalam 5-6 minit lagi perbincangan kita ini, bagaimana akhirnya bahawa kalau kita lihat kuasa-kuasa global, ya memang kuasa besar, kita ambil contoh Amerika Syarikat dan juga China dan juga pada masa sama kita lihat bagaimana pembentukan BRICS sebagai contoh satu kelompok yang sedang giat diusahakan untuk kemajuan secara bersama itu, diversifikasi peluang perdagangan dan juga pelaburan dan sebagainya. Adakah Amir positif melihat bahawa Malaysia berada on a right track dengan negara-negara kuasa besar? Bukan nak meletakkan Malaysia itu sebuah negara maju ataupun kuasa besar, tetapi kita berada di track yang sama dalam nak memastikan bahawa yes, unilateral ke apa yang nak dikenakan oleh Amerika Syarikat, akhirnya kita berkawan dengan semua kita ada peluang untuk meluaskan diversifikasi perniagaan dan juga pelaburan perdagangan kita. Bagaimana Amir melihat bahawa are we on right track ataupun kita dipinggirkan ke atau bagaimana?
Saya rasa
secara jujurnya
kita harus lihat pada konteks di mana Malaysia ini. Kita kita adalah kuasa ekonomi yang sederhana. Kita di luar top 30 dari segi saiz ekonomi kita di tangga ke 33, 34 selalunya ya. Jadi kita ni kuasa ekonomi bersaiz sederhana. Jangan kita tak boleh kata kita kecil. Kita bersaiz sederhana.
Betul.
Tetapi Malaysia sering dari segi ekonomi dan dari segi suara diplomatik juga, we always punch above our weight. Okey. Jadi ini adalah sesuatu yang konsisten bukan saja dasar luar Malaysia tetapi juga untuk dasar ekonomi kita. Kita mempunyai suara kerana kita dihormati. Kita dilihat sebagai satu kuasa yang bersaiz sederhana, yang neutral, yang benar-benar memperjuangkan, contohnya kalau kita bincang tentang persidangan ASEAN centrality.
Betul.
Jadi Malaysia itu konsisten tentang dalam aspek ASEAN centrality ini. Jadi inilah yang menyebabkan rakan-rakan kita, rakan-rakan baik dari segi di peringkat diplomatik dan peringkat ekonomi menghormati Malaysia. Jadi penghormatan ini penting kerana apabila kita dihormati, apabila kita ditimpa masalah, pemimpin kerajaan boleh terus berhubung dengan counterpart mereka dan menyelesaikan masalah ini dengan secara langsung. Ini mungkin sesuatu yang orang tidak lihat secara impaknya secara langsung, tetapi adalah penting untuk negara seperti Malaysia ini yang bersaiz sederhana untuk berkawan dengan seramai kawan yang mungkin dan memastikan kita tak ada musuh.
Betul.
Walaupun susah dalam hidup tak ada musuh ya, tapi itu adalah ideologi yang saya rasa merupakan pegangan kepada kerajaan Malaysia untuk dasar luar dan dasar ekonomi yang pada akhirnya adalah untuk meletakkan kepentingan, untuk memastikan kepentingan negara itu sentiasa terbela.
Ya. Dan saya percaya hubungan baik itu diterjemah kalau kita lihat satu contoh yang cukup dekat dengan hati kita adalah apabila sebagai contoh rakyat Malaysia ditahan di Israel. Bagaimana kuasa diplomatik yang baik, hubungan akrab antara Malaysia dan Turki dan juga mungkin negara-negara jirannya juga seperti Jordan dan sebagainya, itu sedikit sebanyak membantu dalam nak memastikan bahawa rakyat Malaysia dapat dihantar pulang ke tanah air dengan dalam keadaan selamat dan baik. Ini adalah contoh bagaimana pentingnya perhubungan dan hubungan diplomatik yang baik antara Malaysia dan juga negara-negara, bukan sahaja negara-negara jiran, malah negara-negara di seluruh dunia. Dalam kita berkawan, pada masa sama kita mencari ruang dan juga peluang dalam meningkatkan perniagaan, ekonomi dan juga sekaligus meningkatkan ekonomi Malaysia secara keseluruhannya. Terima kasih sekali lagi Amir Farid Rahim, pengarah strategi KRA Group, berkongsi pandangan beliau. InsyaAllah dari semasa ke semasa, termasuk mungkin kita akan wrap up nanti melihat kepada apa yang dicapai dalam APEC ini menerusi 3 tema utamanya dari segi connectivity, dari inovasi dan sebagainya. Ini antara perkara-perkara yang cuba diusahakan dan juga diketengahkan oleh APEC ataupun Korea Selatan selaku tuan rumah APEC tahun ini. Banyak yang akan kita bincangkan dan kita telusuri, dan juga saya akan terus membawakan perkembangan lanjut dari semasa ke semasa serta apa yang akan disampaikan oleh Perdana Menteri di pentas global ini. Sekian saja perkongsian saya untuk APEC 2025 untuk niaga AWANI hari ini. Sekian sahaja dahulu. Saya akan terus bawakan laporan lanjut dalam buletin-buletin AWANI yang seterusnya serta dalam laporan-laporan yang akan datang. Sekian saja, saya Harits Asyraf langsung dari Jeonju, Korea Selatan untuk Astro AWANI.
Ayo sertai Astro Home of Kids di Paradigm Mall Johor Bahru. Alami keseronokan bersama keluarga dan rakan-rakan anda.
Jom Raja lepak.
Anda juga boleh bergambar bersama mereka. Pelanggan Astro boleh menebus pas foto laluan pantas dengan Astro Rewards. Jumpa anda di Paradigm Mall Johor Bahru. Astro Home of Kids, hidupkan keseronokan family di sini.
Uniform Tentera Darat Malaysia TADM bagi peserta program latihan khidmat negara tidak seharusnya menjadi isu hangat.
Jenayah penipuan pelaburan mencatatkan jumlah kerugian tertinggi pada tahun ini setakat 2 Februari lalu.
Kementerian Pendidikan memandang serius isu peningkatan trend penggunaan rokok elektronik.
Lembaga Lebuh Raya Malaysia LLM memperluaskan larangan kenderaan berat memasuki lebuh raya pada waktu puncak di beberapa jajaran terpilih di sekitar Lembah Kelam.
Okey, Japan Mobility Show 2025. Kereta terbang pun ada ditayangkan, kereta biasa dengan teknologi terkini pun ada, kereta futuristik pun ada, kereta yang kena dengan setiap lapisan masyarakat punya permasalahan pun ada ditayangkan di sini. Ini adalah salah satu booth yang dipamerkan di sini dan juga ada banyak lagi booth lain ataupun di dewan-dewan lain yang mempamerkan teknologi terkini, khususnya dalam konteks sama ada EV ataupun teknologi hidrogen yang mahu digunakan di peringkat antarabangsa. Itu naratif yang cuba dibawakan oleh Jepun sendiri melalui Tokyo Automotive Show ini dan juga Mobility Show ini, dan juga sudah pasti kita ingin melihat juga apa sebenarnya maksudnya kepada sektor ini secara keseluruhannya, mobility ini. Cerita apa yang dimahukan? Kerana kalau kita melihat di peringkat dunia, China sebagai contoh memberikan satu bentuk gambaran dan naratif bahawa EV adalah masa depan. Tapi adakah ini berbeza dengan pandangan Jepun? Kita bersama dengan pakar yang biasa mengulas bersama kita dengan industri otomotif ini, Hazri, kalau boleh sertai kita.
Ya.
Hazri dah berpusing berjam-jam tadi dekat sini, Mobility Show ni. Apa cerita yang boleh kita tampilkan? Apa sebenarnya message jelas yang kita nampak sebenarnya?
Kita nampak bahawa Jepun masih lagi cuba memainkan peranan sebagai peneraju teknologi dan gaya hidup dalam dunia kenderaan, dalam dunia otomotif. So, kebanyakan apa yang dipamerkan di Tokyo Mobility Show ini ialah lebih kepada konsep. Di mana ini sedikit berbeza dengan permintaan pasaran. Di mana sekarang ini generasi muda mereka mahukan sesuatu yang mereka boleh dapat sekarang.
Ya.
So apa yang ada hari ini kebanyakannya konsep. Well, some of them they do, orang kata apa, memberikan satu, orang kata apa, it's a good promise lah for the near future. Tapi orang nak tengok benda yang sekarang. Alhamdulillah juga Toyota dia ada tayangkan juga model-model terkini mereka yang lebih relevan. Contohnya seperti Land Cruiser FJ dan juga RAV4 baru. Adalah juga. Tetapi kebanyakan reruai yang saya pergi masih menampilkan konsep-konsep yang akan datang. Dan kita juga ada kenderaan-kenderaan, contohnya daripada syarikat motosikal yang menampilkan kenderaan-kenderaan robot-robot yang saya pun tak nampak relevansi dengan ya. So itulah. So motor show sekarang ni kita kena tengok dalam dunia otomotif kita dah ada satu kuasa besar yang baru. Dan kuasa besar yang baru itu definitely China. Dia lebih kepada, kalau dia buat pameran lebih kepada konsep menjual. Orang nak tahu apa diskaun yang dia dapat dekat show macam tu. Dalam masa yang sama juga, dia akan pamerkan model-model baru yang boleh dibeli. Ada konsep, tapi banyaknya model-model yang memang dilancarkan untuk terus dibeli.
Ya. Saya berbual dengan rakan-rakan motor yang lain yang biasa pergi ke pameran dan sebagainya. Antara mereka menyifatkan, ada yang mengatakan bahawa ini pameran sedemikian dan juga di sini menggambarkan keterbelakangnya Jepun dari segi sektor otomotif berbanding dengan China sebagai contoh. Beberapa tahun ketinggalan dari segi teknologi. Sebab sekarang kita bercakap soal EV contohnya. Tapi di sini mungkin mereka mempamerkan teknologi hidrogen dan sebagainya kan. Bagaimana kita melihat bahawa kedudukan Jepun sebagai kuasa otomotif dunia?
Okey. Mereka memang tercabar lah. Jujur kita katakan dia memang lebih tercabar sebab mereka masih lagi kurang percaya tentang kenderaan elektrik. So mereka lebih kepada kenderaan hybrid. Hydrogen ialah satu perjuangan yang mereka masih teruskan. And we can see a few models here. Even motosikal pun ada yang gunakan hydrogen. Tetapi dari segi EV kita boleh nampak setiap booth yang ada, setiap reruai yang ada memang ada kenderaan elektrik. Cuma dia tidak terangkan bateri apa, berapa jarak gerak, benda tu. Konsep dah ada. Yang itu yang membezakan. Sebab orang dah macam sedikit jelak dengan konsep. Sebab konsep car will give you the dreams. Tapi bila dah siap, selalunya model yang dijual untuk kita jauh berbeza, jauh lebih tak cantik daripada konsep.
Jadi itu kita lihat ialah harapan dan juga bagaimana kedudukan Jepun. Okey, tapi kalau kita melihat juga persaingan itu ada kalanya kita melihat sengit dari segi pengeluar, tapi sekarang dominasi itu kita melihat ialah China terhadapan. Ini berdasarkan kalau orang Malaysia yang tengok berapa banyak kereta daripada China masuk ke Malaysia dan menggambarkan bahawa China mendominasi pasaran pada ketika ini. Tapi dari segi teknologi itu adakah sudah berubah mindset orang Malaysia melihat kepada teknologi yang dimiliki oleh China, teknologi yang dimiliki oleh Jepun? Sebab sekarang ni kalau orang kata kalau kereta di Jepun, teknologi kau tim. Tapi kalau China, made in China, ada masalah. Adakah sudah berubah perkara itu?
Okey, konsep teknologi ini adalah satu perkara yang sangat subjektif. Ya. Untuk pemain industri, mereka tahu apa itu teknologi terkini. Sebelum ini, teknologi terkini hanya boleh didapati di dalam model-model premium. Maknanya untuk golongan marhain, pengguna marhain, mereka tidak tahu teknologi itu wujud. Tetapi jika mereka sudah membeli kenderaan-kenderaan premium, mereka tahu teknologi itu sudah ada. Apa yang China buat ialah mereka letakkan teknologi-teknologi yang memang sudah ada di dalam pasaran pada kenderaan premium, di dalam kenderaan mampu milik. So pada mereka itu ialah teknologi baru. Walhal dalam dunia otomotif itu bukan teknologi baru. So sebenarnya teknologi baru masih lagi dipegang oleh syarikat-syarikat besar daripada Jepun dan juga daripada Eropah. Daripada China, paling maju yang kami boleh lihat ialah pembangunan bateri itu sendiri daripada syarikat bateri, bukan daripada syarikat kenderaan. So itu yang kita boleh nampak. Cuma contohnya lah macam Daihatsu, Toyota, mereka ini sebenarnya adalah sebuah syarikat yang besar yang buat produk untuk golongan marhain sampai ke golongan bangsawan. So mereka tahu the product differentiation mereka ada. So apa yang mereka tunjukkan, mereka terang-terang dah cakap untuk produk yang lebih marhain, dia tak akan dapat features macam ni. So itulah satu kelemahan. Tetapi untuk produk daripada China, semua produk mereka ada. Masalah dengan konsep itu ialah bila mereka nak keluarkan kenderaan premium, tidak ada beza dengan kenderaan marhain. So orang akan rasa macam kenapa aku perlu bayar mahal padahal yang model bawah pun dah dapat semua. Exactly.
Okey, itu kita lihat perbezaannya lah. Tapi untuk Malaysia sendiri, kita ialah dalam konteks dua pengeluar utama, sudah pastilah Proton ini Pro 2, Proton ada EV, Pro 2 insya-Allah akan mengeluarkan EV juga. Apa masa hadapan untuk otomotif di Malaysia? Sebab bukan lambat kereta lah. Kereta luar masuk banyak, kereta tempatan juga ada. Kita lihat di sini macam-macam ada. Of course, Hazri sendiri melihat di pameran di China sendiri lagi banyak model dan sebagainya kan. Kalau di Malaysia tu bagaimana pasaran otomotif itu? Adakah dia akan terus penat nak chase new model macam mana katanya?
Okey, dia macam ni lah. Kita bayangkan Malaysia, pasaran Malaysia ni ialah sebuah pizza ataupun roti canai lah. Besar dia macam tu. Okey, kalau kita ada berdua, kita boleh potong 50-50. Berempat, 25-25-25. Suku-suku. Bayangkan kalau kita ada 100 orang. Roti canai tu besar. Sama juga. So, mana pasaran semakin lama semakin kecil untuk setiap pemain. Untuk setiap model. Ini ialah masalah. Sebabnya ialah dengan pasaran kecil, sekiranya jumlah pendapatan syarikat itu minimal, mereka tak mampu untuk invest. Invest ni bukan buka kilang saja apa semua, tetapi untuk after sales yang lebih baik. So yang itu akan ada after effect kepada pengguna sendiri. So itu pada pendapat saya, kerajaan nak ke tak nak, dia boleh buat open market, tetapi dengan kita ada industri otomotif tempatan yang kita sendiri perlu jaga sebab dia memang besar dengan skala besar. I think some sort of control kena ada. Contohnya mereka perlu melabur di sini, buat CKD, local component, pekerja tempatan. Kalau kita buka semua ni, memang pada pendapat saya sukarlah.
Okey. Yang soalan terakhir saya, sebelum datang ke sini, sebab Azri kerap mengatakan bahawa ini pameran kali ini lebih besar berbanding 2 tahun yang sudah kita datang di sini. Okey, memula harapannya sebelum sampai, apabila sampai tengok ni, dia meet expectation ataupun dia tak sampai expectation?
Mula-mula memang saya ada expectation yang sangat tinggi lah sebab dia jemput ramai datang ke sini. So saya rasa macam there must be something big they want to show to us. Lebih besar daripada 2 tahun lepas, tetapi masih lagi kecil berbanding dengan tahun dulu-dulu. So dia tak mencapai expectation saya lah sebenarnya lah kan. Buat penat berjalan je ni saya ni.
Okey, tunggu 2 tahun lagi kita tengok macam mana keadaannya. Terima kasih Azri kerana bersama kami. Okey, itu rangkuman yang boleh saksikan naratif yang dibawakan di Tokyo Mobility Show 2025 ini. Kita akan rangkumkan di laman web kami astro.com.
Musikal dengan alunan suara yang unik. Arena pahlawan terbahak kau.
Punchline ah. Macam-macam hai, sorry lah macam.
Persaingan kini makin berapi. Siapa akan tergolek? Musikal lawak superstar musim kelima di Astro Prima dan Astro Go.
I'm reporting from Singapore International Energy Week SIEW 2025, where discussions on regional cooperation and energy transition are taking center stage. The ASEAN power grid is seen as a cornerstone of the region's future energy landscape. enabling countries to trade electricity, integrate more renewables, and reduce costs through shared infrastructure. But to turn this vision into reality, ASEAN will need coordinated policy frameworks, clear market mechanism, and sustained investment from both public and private sectors.
If you share your resources, you can delay your infrastructure, like building a power plants, building another transmission network, your grid. Yeah, if you have a strong interconnected system with your neighbors, so those money can save, can reduce the cost of energy in a country like Malaysia. And energy security. What will be the cost? If I may ask you, what will be the cost implication to the economy if you have a blackout? Massive, it's huge. So those security costs can be shared among ASEAN member states if grid are interconnected together. So those are the saving can be translated into bringing down the cost of energy, not only electricity, also other energy costs. So again, the way forward for each of ASEAN member states is to work together. That can also translate into a cost saving. And then, you mentioned about the tariff, electricity tariff, and the cost of fuel, energy that also contributing to this cost of electricity. So by sharing, by working together, that will help managing the volatility as well. The cost can be very, very volatile. But if you build more renewable energy, solar, wind, there's no running costs, solar and wind. So you only spend, capital costs, initial capital costs, but running costs is almost free, wind and solar. So that also address the volatility. If you were to pay the hedging, to hedge, you never know the crude and the gas price and even the coal price can be very volatile. Yeah? We experienced this during COVID and post-COVID, during Ukraine war and Russian war. So again, renewable energy can provide the answer of managing the volatility of the hydrocarbon costs in future. Yeah.
With ASEAN member states having diverse energy capacities, Najib says inclusivity and transparency are key to ensuring no country is left behind.
So we have this slogan, no one left behind, no one will be left behind. And the other aspect that we are looking at the market mechanism. So when you talk about market mechanism, it's a commercial agreements, commercial terms and so on. So they will be very transparent, how even you decide the wheeling charges, how you decide the power purchase agreement between the B2B in the open. So I believe the market will determine the pricing and the cost, and everything has to be fair. So take example, Laos, we always say Laos is like a battery for the Southeast Asian, for the ASEAN. So if they were to sell the power to their neighboring countries, they will get, whatever the right price for their resources, especially the hydro resources. In Vietnam, they have a lot of wind resources, so they will get the right price. So it's all based on the commercial and the market that we're going to design properly. So to answer to you is yes, it is a thing that we are going to work fairly and open and transparent to the satisfaction of all ASEAN member states.
ASEAN Centre for Energy also plays a pivotal role in driving this vision forward through harmonized standards, policy alignment, and robust frameworks to enable cross-border power trade.
ASEAN Energy Minister also agreed on the next, our 5 years business plan. We call ASEAN Plan of Action for Energy Cooperation starting next year until 2030. So we're going to put up the implementation activities plan aligned with this strategic objective and aligned with this KPI given to us to finish within 5 years. Again, we have 7 program areas, we call 7 levers. So APG is the number 1 levers. Of course, in the beginning, we discussed all those list things to do, harmonizing our Greek code, technical code, aligning national and regional policy, and determining the wheeling charges and all the practical and the terms and reference on power purchase agreement and so on. So how can utility operator from one country to communicate, protocol and so on and so forth. So ACE will be busy as a secretariat, and we come up with all the framework. Not to forget the importance of renewable energy certificate. We also given a task to finalize the REC standard or framework, a common framework which is acceptable to all 10 ASEAN member states. And one important thing, the other framework that we're going to finish by October next year is a submarine framework, submarine cable framework. So there's going to be another interesting project, not only on land, inland. There will be a lot of project that involve laying submarine cable crossing the ASEAN archipelago. Yeah.
As ASEAN advances its power grid ambitions, collaboration both within the region and with global partners will be critical. The challenge now lies in translating plans into projects and commitments into connections. From SIEW 2025, I am Farhana reporting for Astro AWANI.
Padang kita. Di sini harapan diuji. Satu percubaan beras. Dan semangat juang kekal membara. Mereka bangkit mencabar dan teguh mempertahankan maruah. Ini Padang kita. Liga Super secara langsung di Astro Arena Bola dan Astro Go.
Gaza menjadi medan pembunuhan beramai-ramai dan penghapusan etnik yang sistematik terhadap penduduk Palestin dengan ratusan serangan udara dan darat menyasarkan kawasan kediaman, hospital, sekolah serta kem pelarian.
Polis Kuala Lumpur mengeluarkan 7,013 saman lalu lintas dalam tempoh 2 hari pelaksanaan penuh PUU.
Perbuatan menghidang atau menonjolkan minuman berasaskan arak dalam majlis rasmi kerajaan adalah bertentangan dengan hukum syarak, moral dan undang-undang negara.
The FBI said 15% of all cyber crimes are reported. So you look at all these numbers of trillions of dollars in loss and you're like, it's got to be a small fraction of what's actually out there and being actually, taken away from victims. And there are a variety of reasons for that. Obviously, there's, you have to know that you're being attacked and there's an incident, something's in your system, but also there's shame involved in some cases. Sometimes you feel like you might be blamed for the crime. I think a lot of it is they feel foolish. Maybe they feel like, law enforcement just won't be able to help them. They see the numbers, trillions of dollars, and they're like, well, I only lost 17,000 or whatever it is. Like mine is so minor. But again, especially from a law enforcement perspective, I encourage everybody to report because A, we can't help you. We can't prevent future victims from being victimized. And also, I think it's the way for law enforcement to understand emerging criminal methodologies.
We have a tendency to share stories when these cyber criminals were successful, when we were breached, when we were a victim. It's equally important to share these stories where you had these cases, of course, of prevention and also where these cyber criminals failed, right? It often boosts their reputation when we come out with stories that say, they were highly sophisticated and successful in breaching organization X, Y, or Z and causing millions of dollars in damages. But, cases that we have seen, for instance, with law enforcement against groups like Lockbit, also when you, for instance, disrupt them or when you're a victim, point out that they have not been deleting data, point out that they have been making mistakes, undermine also that branding element that these groups carry with them.
I think we need to also take into account the full range of small, medium enterprises. How do we make sure that they're protected? What's their role? And we'll need new approaches similar to digital public infrastructure for cybersecurity. What are the tools and capabilities that we make available as a kind of public infrastructure to small, medium enterprises and smaller states that don't necessarily have those capabilities? And, I think one telltale sign is when you see a political leader or a state government using a Gmail or Hotmail address because they actually have higher confidence in the security of these tools than they necessarily do in their own IT systems.
Up until now, the interplay between government and the private sector has been a little bit of, well, it's not my responsibility, it's your responsibility, and the cost should be on you. I think we need to change that mindset. So investing in security by design or resilience by design is seen as a shared responsibility. So on the one hand, the government is being sure to bring the private sector into, scenario-based planning. Conversely, government also has to provide the incentives.
For those of us in the cybersecurity domain, we've been familiar with this concept of shadow IT. Whatever the official device policy was, users would go out and find their own path, their own tools. They often perform better, they're easier to use, they were mobile friendly, and people would use their own tools and bring them to the office, and that created a vulnerability. What we see now is that people have moved from shadow IT to shadow AI, right? And so, it's like, okay, whatever the, corporate sponsored, LLM model was that wasn't as well branded as the commercial options, people just, vote with their feet, use their phone, and are using these.
Added now a new curriculum focused on AI, and in that AI curriculum provided things in every single chapters about cybersecurity, safety, ethics, security of how you use this AI. And even prior to that, in the national type of curriculum, there are some cybersecurity awareness. Imagine this goes from KG1.
At the time, copyright was too onerous. It was too restrictive to allow for sort of free flow of knowledge, remixing of creativity, etc. And so the Creative Commons license suite was born. It's this idea that you give credit back to the original creator, and in this beautiful way, the sort of like web of creativity and knowledge sort of spreads throughout the world. How will people keep engaging with that knowledge project? How will you bring in new editors? How will you find supporters? I mean, they have massive small dollar donation campaigns at the end of every year that help keep that public good online. But if no one goes back there, how will they know that this is something that is so valuable that is worth contributing to? Within the sort of Creative Commons, movement and community, we used to say, that when we share, everybody wins, because everybody benefits from us sharing things. And if we do not find a way to restore balance to the information ecosystem, that goes away. When we think about reciprocity in the age of AI, what we would very much like to do and instill sort of into the value system of, should we say, like ethical or public interest AI, is that if you are benefiting from something that is openly available and that people are freely contributing to, that you find a way to give back to that. Everything has been reduced to data, and then that is used for training. And then those models, there's applications being built on top of it that might be being sold back to us. And this is what we could all previously benefit from. So it seems to make sense to us that in those instances, it would be prudent to share some of those benefits back with the broader open community. If you are a major technology company and you have massive revenues as a result of training on the commons, our strong preference would be that you consider how you can reciprocate back to that ecosystem, because fundamentally, that is the ecosystem on which this quote-unquote innovation and technology has taken place.
Maaf, saya banyak sangat dosa dekat you.
Kemunculan Azlin yang tidak disangka.
Jangan buang air atas siapa dah, Zah?
Yang kau buat anak kita tu menderita, kau sedar tak? Kau yang bodoh tak boleh nak fikir benda macam tu.
Tolonglah bagi satu je lagi peluang.
Bahagia atau kecewa?
Sekarang ni kau memang tak diperlukan rumah ni. Kau pergi balik rumah mak kau lah.
Kau siapa? Kenapa muka dia sama macam ibu?
Nama kau siapa? Irina.
Mutiara dalam Debuan Kamus.
di AstroRia dan Astro Go.
Tariffs on imports of products from China reaching up to 145%.
Tariffs on the rest of the world are sitting at 10%, with the potential for reciprocal tariffs to be reimposed within 90 days.
Kunjungan rasmi Presiden China ke Malaysia ini menunjukkan komitmen kedua-dua negara untuk meningkatkan hubungan diplomatik ke tahap yang lebih strategik.
Nak pilih kecergasan mental atau ketahanan fizikal? Gabungkan je lah kedua-duanya. Barulah jadi jago sebenar. Hai, saya Mak Redha. Temui saya dalam Jago Rakan Muda. Sebuah program terbaru di Astro. Inisiatif oleh Kementerian Belia dan Sukan. Rakan Muda, yakin boleh.
Di era digital, pemasaran bukan hanya tentang penjualan semata-mata. Penceritaan menarik jadi kekuatan dalam membina hubungan perniagaan, tingkat pengetahuan, perkasakan perniagaan anda. Saksikan segmen Jiwa SME dalam program AWANI Pagi dan Niaga AWANI setiap Isnin hingga Khamis di saluran 501. Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah Jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Selamat datang ke GVverse, gelanggang pertembungan suara hebat. Di sini, bakat sedalam lautan, pengalaman setebal hutan, azam setinggi gunung, berjuang merebut takhta. Dunia bintang kembali menyengat. Vagansers, nadi mereka. Nafas baharu dibawa, pasti memukau. Gegar Vaganza 2025, 2 November, 9 malam, secara langsung hanya di Astro.
Hello and welcome to Niaga Spotlight with me, Tehmina Kaoosji. Niaga Spotlight takes us through the weekend, economic analysis and future affairs. Now today on analysis, our spotlight is on Malaysia's gender-powered economy. In a week dominated by regional summits and investment narratives, Malaysia has an opportunity to lead ASEAN by example with a gender-powered, inclusive economy amidst slowing global growth. Now, in line with this, Malaysia just launched the Wanita MYWira accelerator backed by the World Economic Forum and led by Talent Corps, alongside key ministries and private sector partners. It aims to train 100,000 women for high-growth sectors in AI, green energy and digital services, positioning Malaysia as the first ASEAN country to operationalize WEF's global accelerator model at national scale. Now, this also comes at a most pivotal moment. Malaysia's female labour force participation rate stands at roughly 56.2% compared to around roughly 78.4% for men, and a gap which, if closed, carries an estimated 26% potential gain in income per capita, according to the World Bank's reports. Now, the IMF also further notes that women have already contributed up to 14% of Malaysia's GDP growth over the last decade. Clear evidence as well of gender inclusion as an economic strategy. Today, we aim to examine how Wanita MYWira can potentially drive Malaysia towards its minimum 60% female labour force participation target by 2030, convert training into real income mobility, and establishing women as a central engine of national competitiveness and ASEAN leadership, measurable via GDP impact. Welcoming to the studios on that note, Nazrul Aziz, Group Chief Strategy Officer, Talent Corps, together with Nurul Ain Abdul Latif, Executive Chair, PwC Malaysia, and Chair of the 30% Club, Malaysia. A very good morning to the both of you.
Thank you, Tehmina.
Thank you so much for being with us here today. So if I could get the conversation started, perhaps, Nazrul, by referring to you, and let's talk a little bit more about Talent Corps' good track record, which is basically a decade running programs like the Women's Career Comeback Grant, and Flexible Work Advisory. So how has that actually helped to build the potential framework for the Wanita MYWira accelerator?
Let me actually bring us back to how we started this accelerator project.
Sure.
So we started off with a Labour Minister meeting attended by our minister way back in 2024 in Geneva. So at that point, WF offered Malaysia to run an accelerator. We scanned across the accelerator to assess what would be the value of this accelerator for Malaysia. And some of the countries that we have looked across, one example is Japan. Japan, when they started this accelerator, their problem statement was on gender wage gap. As an outcome of the accelerator, they then now legislate a gender wage gap reporting, which is now translated into an act there. And in addition to that, they also get more than 300 male CEOs to commit to this. So that's a game changer for Japan. And in Colombia, we have seen that they have legislate paternity leave, extended paternity leave after the accelerator. So you're thinking that, okay, there's an outcome of this accelerator.
In these two different markets.
Yes,
yeah.
But before we decide on women, we have further discussion with Minister. What will be the key focus area that we want to look at? There are youth unemployment, for example, or underemployment issue, for example, and also we also raise about female labour force participation rate. And then finally we land on female labour force participation rate, looking at how we can align it with the economy Madani target of achieving female labour force participation rate at 60% by 2030. So that's how it started. And then there's a lot of conversation and discussion across with World Economic Forum, and we made it very clear that we don't want this to be just a gender-focused accelerator, because in our context, we are not looking this as a gender issue. We are looking this from an economic imperative.
Understood.
Like you mentioned just now, how gender inclusivity contribute to the economic development. So we are looking this from the economic perspective, because for us, talent matters. Talent will support the economic growth of the country. And of course, within the talent pool, there's an untapped talent pool, the female talent that we need to ensure that we optimize them. So that's how it started. Of course, you mentioned about the program that we had done earlier, the Career Comeback Program, the Life at Work Award, for example. But what we want to move to another level is to transition program-centric to ecosystem-based. We want to address this from ecosystem perspective, where connecting all these dots across, the three focus area for this accelerator will be, number one, we are looking at skilling. But it's not just another skilling, because everyone does skilling. But this skilling will be evidence-based skilling. We base this skilling on the foundation that we have built through our impact study of AI, digital and green economy on our workforce. So there are emerging roles that we have identified. There are lowly impacted roles that we have identified, could be potentially filled by women. So what we are doing is we will then look at what will be the skill set that can allow women to pivot into this role and to make them more agile and flexible.
Exactly.
So
I think it's very interesting that a lot has been informed not only by what gaps exist within Malaysia, but also trying to see how regional models apply.
Exactly.
So moving from there, Nazrul, if I could move into asking Nurul more about board-level accountability as well. Now, PwC Malaysia's recent work with boards shows that there is a little bit of skepticism still around gender diversity, despite lots of regulatory nudges. So are there any board-level mechanisms in your experience that you've seen to actually shift behavior of corporate culture so that it is much more inclusive for women who are already eligible to take part at this level?
The PwC Corporate Director Survey in 2024 highlighted, several, interesting observations. It's, 25% of board members we surveyed says that, yes, policy and regulation have actually helped nudge the gender diversity agenda, and I think this is proven by the statistics of having more than 30% on gender diversity on boards of the top 100 public listed company. But interestingly, the statistics of the survey showed that almost half still were not very clear in terms of, how gender diversity actually resulted in better business outcome. And I think that is where the problem is. For me as chair of the 30% club, we still need to convince board members that gender diversity does improve business performance. As you mentioned before, there are mechanisms which I've seen which have helped with the agenda. But I think what we must remember is that it shouldn't just be a box-ticking exercise. Even if you have a diverse board or a diverse senior management, if it is not inclusive, in substance, you will not get the diverse perspective in the meeting. I thought that, some of the mechanisms which has worked in some companies, both local and global, having P&L link KPIs. At the end of the day, as a business, it's always business outcome. I think the second very important point, and this ensures that it is not just gender diversity now, but it is a lot more sustainable, is the incorporation of gender targets when we do succession planning. And thirdly is the use of subcommittees to make sure that female board members or senior management are a lot more ready. So if I can just elaborate in terms of the P&L link KPIs, it may not be very prevalent here, but globally we have seen gender diversity targets being set in tandem with growth in terms of result and linked to senior management remuneration, right? And you know what? It reinforces the point that gender diversity is not standalone, but it actually benefits the whole organization.
Exactly, and that's the whole idea around it. And meanwhile, actually, coming from the WEF's Global Gender Gap Report 2025, Malaysia has actually increased our ranking from 146, we are on to 108. Very, very encouraging. We hope to perhaps potentially with success to come from the Wanita MYWira Accelerator and support from partners to perhaps break that 100, the top 100 globally. So coming back into that, Cik Nazrul, now the Accelerator's first year ambition is pretty bold. Tell us more about how you envision it being operationalized now that, of course, the launch is behind us and we're looking forward towards the frameworks that can hopefully be rolled out in tandem too.
So that's why, Tehmina, we target 3 phases for Wanita MYWira. So the first year, 2026, will be on the skilling side. We just need to get the skilling right first. This is not new for us because we have established an ecosystem called My Future Skill Talent Council, where we have established 18 sector councils comprising leaders from respective sector. So they will decide right from what are the demands of the sector, what are the gaps, what will be the fulfillment required, and then who are the best provider for that fulfillment. Throughout this, we then fund the skilling. And within this pool of talent, we have about 4,000. 1,006 are already women. So mean that we are already running it. What we are doing next with Wanita MYWira is to repurpose it and to make it more strategic to focus on the 3 domain area, AI, digital, and green economy. So the number, when we put that number, it was not just, a number that we simply plucked from the air. It's a number that we have actually done. And the outcome of this My Mahi ecosystem is, we have seen some increase of salary, about 10 to 15% from the first cohort of 400 of them. So we actually track them. We assess where were they before and then how much they are earning now. So there's an increase of 10 to 15% across. So we will build Wanita MYWira skilling based on that. So in addition to that, we need to tie with a proper and structured framework of returnship also for those who are already on career break. So there's another approach that we will co-develop a framework throughout this accelerator, that we will then actually structure a proper returnship program. So rather than just simply telling the companies to take back, so we will then actually work together with the company to develop an industry-accepted framework for returnship. So that's our target. So coming to the second phase will be the scaling up of this accelerator up to state level. This is where actually we get the number. That's why next year will be very critical, because once actually the accelerator get the right model, it's time for us actually to go to the state level. The state level will be the the number that we are going to scale it up, about 40,000. And we do hope that by 2030, we are going to reach 100,000. So hopefully after that, once everything has been firmed up, then we then translate it into a strategic statement together with Ministry of Women, Family and Community Development within the RMK, the upcoming RMK 14.
Exactly,
So
because it's
the,
also about not just the trainings, but then achieving a placement goal as well for the women who have.
So that's why we get 1,000 companies also to be part of this accelerator. To commit on adopting FWA, work-life practices, as well as returnship. And like Nurul mentioned just now, we really need to link it to the P&L so that actually it become like a business decision. You are not able to retain talent is cost for you. So I mean, those things that we are working together with the companies.
Exactly, and that brings us perfectly to segue into what PwC has been doing. And in your experience, Nurul, when it comes to designing work around life, but not so much the other way around, PwC has, of course, implemented for a while now family-friendly as well as flexible provisions. In your experience, which specific flexible work designs are actually the ones which help to improve women's retention as well as progression once they are back within the workforce?
So we introduced the Flex program more than 10 years ago, and it was done in stages because we need to assess whether it has impact to the business, it has impact to client service delivery, and impact to the people within. So what we found as it relates to retention and progression is there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and for women, for example, the needs and challenges differs over their career journey, and I think the most impactful initiative is the one which are low-hanging fruit. So I feel what was very popular and what actually helped was the Flex Time initiative. It means that there's a lot of flexibility in terms of when you come into work, when you clock out, and it's very useful to an employee who has just started having a family, dropping off children to school, picking them up from nursery. So that was very popular, and it was both a recruitment tool because it attracted many of our young graduates, as well as a retention tool. I think the other one which I felt I enjoyed it a lot personally is flex space. It means that you can work wherever you are as long as your work is done.
Right.
It can be at home, it can be in a cafe, it can be in the office or your client's place, and it actually empowers people to manage their time a lot better with their teams. So there were many other initiatives I thought I could share where for returning mothers, for example, we have the reduced work program. You work 3 days a week. Obviously, salary will be a portion. It may take a bit longer to get a promotion, but there are some people who have benefited from having those kind of programs.
That's right. Managing, especially during the time when a family is in its early growth stages. So all of that makes so much sense, particularly, Nazrul, as Talent Corps was also behind this entire framework and guidelines, and now also runs the FWA at Workplace Advisory. So through the Wanita MYWira Accelerator, tell us about what the idea is about translating what the FWA models have shown us insofar, and then trying to apply it for, in particular, Malaysian industries, SMEs, those who face very specific sector challenges for implementing what can be seen as very beneficial for a large corporation, but may not make that much economic sense in the immediate term for them.
I understand. I mean, it's not easy because, I mean, when we started all this among the GLCs and MNCs, I mean, it's there. But the bigger challenge will be on the SME side. So that will be the space that we are going to attack and target. We need to work closely with SMEs, actually, how actually we can actually collaboratively create a conducive environment that will be able to retain women in the workforce. For example, in every 10 Malaysian, 5 will be working with SMEs. So addressing this from SME perspective will be very, very important.
Crucial, yeah.
Very, very crucial. So that's why when you ask about life at work, and then you ask about the aturan kerja fleksibel that, I mean, the garis panduan that we have introduced together with Jabatan Tenaga Kerja, it needs to be an ecosystem. That's why we are actually connecting all these dots together under this accelerator. As I mentioned earlier, skilling is one part of it, but we know that no matter how good we are in skilling this woman, at the end of the day, if the workplace and the work itself is not enabling, then it won't work. So that's how actually we were working with companies actually to, the 1,000 companies to really drive these changes. And these companies will range from the top, and from the top, the MNC GSCs up to the SMEs. And we believe that we have all this pool of companies that we have engaged with through our Left at Work Award. There's a lot of companies actually part of the ecosystem through our LAWA. And in fact, yesterday was our 10th anniversary of LAWA.
That's right.
Yesterday. So last night, we celebrated LAWA. So at the end of the day, it is all about the ecosystem. So our concern is actually we are focusing too much on program verticals. So it's now about working horizontally and bring
streamlining everything
together, because it's interrelated to each other. So if you ask me what the accelerator will do, it's not that we have not done this before. We have done it. But point is actually we are using this accelerator as a platform for us to connect and bring everyone together, so that let's address this as an ecosystem.
Exactly. And I think this is going to be particularly important for those mid-sized companies, so that they are able to not just participate in the accelerator, but also meet all the preconditions, right? Nurul, I would love to ask you about looking at indicators, right? For every employer potentially who wants to participate in the accelerator, what type of indicators should they be reporting so that we are very finite about what the parameters that they are meeting when it comes to accountability and leadership transparency?
Transparency generates accountability, and it's very important that it's not just having an indicator, but it has to be monitored and reported. So the indicators would need to, I feel, cover a couple of key principles. One, representation of women in the workforce, and some of the indicators which I feel is quite easily sort of reported and data determined is in terms of number of women in the workforce, and this shouldn't just be looked at as a blended number. I think what also is important is to sort of drill down. It could be by levels. Like in PwC, we looked at different levels, the more junior levels, manager levels, and the more senior levels, because the ratios, you'll see that it is very different.
Oh,
if
yes,
you look
especially
at it
C-suite, right?
in the granular way. I think it's not only just representation, statistics in a point in time. What is also more important is to keep them, retention. Yeah.
Sure.
And there are a number of ratios which you'll be able to use to assess the retention of women along their career journey. And this could be looking at hiring and turnover rate at different level. And I have seen companies where to make sure that all departments, not all the females are skewed to one department. I think they actually drill it down by department. I think thirdly, you retain the people, you retain the female workers. What also is important to make sure that we have a good pipeline of senior leaders is the advancement opportunity. So the ratio which we have used is looking at percentage of promotion, within the workforce, and this could also be compared with the proportion to the woman talent pool. So at the end of the day, I think these are good KPIs, but many times it's like, yes, I meet or I don't meet the KPI, what happens? So there has to be consequence is very important. I think senior management or the board need to assess, why are targets not met? Because this could be data points to see what should be done to make it better. And consequent management will include not just diversity target. What is also very important is inclusion, right? And this has to be monitored and reported, and it should be part of the formal performance review.
Absolutely, because all of this is actually part of the minimum threshold which can actually drive workplace transformation, which ideally is what you're also looking at. Nazrul, you had mentioned briefly earlier about the Life at Work Awards, the LAWA Awards. So that has also become a reputational lever amongst the Malaysian ecosystem for DEI and flexible work excellence. How can Malaysia perhaps use the accelerator now to prototype a little bit more of a data-driven, evidence-based approach?
As I mentioned just now, Tehmina, when we started this accelerator, we start with the premise that, okay, we have done a lot of things, but we not necessarily know everything. So there's a lot of data points that we have collected, including from LAWA. So the whole idea is to bring all this data together, crunch it, and then find a collective solution towards it. So LAWA has been there for 10 years. There's a lot of data points behind LAWA. There's a lot of best practices. For example, we are a mini World Economic Forum, I would say, in the context of DEI, because the reason why we joined this accelerator partly is also, apart from WEF providing us with the methodology to run this accelerator, they also provide us to access to the accelerator network so that we can learn from other countries.
Right.
Similarly, for LAWA, is something that we can actually emulate, where actually companies actually can learn from each other across, right? From the SMEs, learning from the GLCs, MNCs learning across. And I believe maybe there are certain things that MNCs, GLCs also can learn from the SMEs.
Sure.
So what we'll do is we bring all these LAWA inputs and data points into this accelerator, and how actually want to enable a workplace that is actually feasible for us to drive the agenda of female labour force participation rate 60% by 2030. So that's something that we are, how actually we are going to bring LAWA in this accelerator. So because, I mean, all the data points actually is there, is something that we will actually use it more effectively and optimize it.
And when you say using it more effectively and optimizing, would there be a move towards moving from pledges into perhaps verified outcomes for accelerator-tied mandate?
Definitely with the companies who are part of the accelerator, there'll be a proper tracker based on the three components, the skilling part, the retention part, as well as the implementation of the flexible working arrangement or work-life practices. So we properly track whether there's correlation between the implementation of flexible working arrangement, for example, with the retention of the woman, for example. So we need to do this. In fact, for your information, we are currently assessing we are doing an impact study of the implementation of the 60P and 60K flexible working arrangement under Employment Act. So we are looking at how effective, because we introduced it, the Kusuma introduced it in 2023. So we have actually now 2 years. So we are looking at how actually this 60P and 60Q actually really impact the workforce. So we are assessing it. It will be completed by end of this year. So that will also be another input for the accelerator. So there are many inputs that we are working on parallelly that will be actually going into the accelerator.
Absolutely. So all of that sounds like a very dynamic sort of an ecosystem, which is taking into fact a lot of very recent data, because when you talk about 2023 onwards, that's actually also post-pandemic work from home orders, and also seeing which companies were quite resilient in adopting it and which ones were still trying to find their feet. So as we move towards closing out the conversation, Nurul, perhaps I could ask you about looking at change programs for inclusion. Now, PwC's hopes and fears data is showing that Malaysian workers do, in general, feel overwhelmed by constant changes, right? So tell us a little bit more around this.
Well, the survey showed that a big majority, 75% of the people surveyed are saying that, wow, they have encountered so much change in that particular year in 2024 compared to 12 months prior.
Right.
And I think women are most impacted because they are overrepresented in sectors where automation is a risk.
Generative AI is really impacting them.
And I think in some places, maybe not all, the opportunity in terms of development programs, upskilling may be a bit limited for female. So what I would suggest, and this is what we also do in PwC, is for a leader to implement your change program, I think couple of points. Looking at skills and visibility of female employees. I think if you have bite-sized, very short upskilling program for relevant skills, I think that would work wonders for female employees because it sort of opens up that opportunity for them. What is also very important is you may, upskill them, you may give them the tool, but I think in terms of the environment of the workforce, I think that also has to be looked at. So psychological safety is an element which will make people embrace any change. Yeah, making sure that, the organization, it is safe to, speak your view and have open dialogues with your team members. I think the third very important element is, the culture itself. Yeah, culture is very important. The policy may say that, we are very open and inclusive, but, does the leaders actually embrace that? Right?
And what kind of, what can you put in place perhaps, Nurul, as maybe early warning metrics, let's say, so that companies and organizations can also act on it in case they are also new to wanting to adopt all of this kind of inclusivity?
Okay. So organizations normally have their annual employee survey.
Sure.
And I think we should look out for the statistics for questions, for example, your sense of belonging in the organization, or issues with team members or unconscious bias, because any declining statistics would give you an indicator that there's something wrong. Aside from that, you don't rely only on annual surveys. The KPIs, which I mentioned just now, that should be tracked regularly. And if you see a decline in score or statistics which is an outlier, I think that's where we need to be ready to assess. What is the temperature out there in the workspace? Yeah.
Absolutely. So Nurul as well as Najib, thank you so much for the fantastic conversation. And in closing, Wanita MYWira is a litmus test for how serious Malaysia is about the gender-powered economic transformation model. The outcomes will be measured by hopefully how many women enter high-value sectors, their earnings shifting income distribution, and how widely the private sector is also able to adopt structural reform instead of merely symbolic compliance. If gender participation rises, productivity rises, and if it stalls, so does competitiveness. This is a strategic agenda, and the window to act is now. I'm Tehmina Kaoosji signing off for now. Here's to a productive week ahead.
Dibawakan oleh